Hello and welcome. I'm Tom Sinclair, bringing you another in a long-running series of exciting episodes of Streaming Idiots. Well, not really. Anyway, I am. You can tell I'm excited. I am over the top excited today because we've got a very special guest. Not really in the studio, but in the studio. And we're gonna introduce him and bring him in just a minute. It's Paul Richards from PTZOptics. But before we get Paul here, because we're going to spend a lot of time with Paul today, we're just going to squeeze all sorts of information out of him. We're going to make him tell us all of the secrets of PTZOptics. But I'm getting ahead of myself. If you're a vMix follower, you want to know that vMix released an incremental update to vMix 17. Last night, yesterday, kind of depends on where you are in the world. So you'll want to go to the vMix forum and get that, especially if you'd had some problems in those areas. You can go to the vMix 17 changelog, which is on the general discussion page, and that'll tell you exactly what it was and whether that might apply to you. For the VidBlaster aficionados out there, VidBlaster 5, which is VidBlaster X, the new annual subscription model, has finally been released to resellers. So if you've been waiting to purchase your VidBlaster X from us, you can now do that. It'll be in our store by the end of the week. It's $99 a year, and that's for the equivalent of the old VidBlaster Studio Edition. And so basically, anytime you renew your subscription at the end of the year, and actually anytime before that, you get the latest, greatest features in VidBlaster. And the VidBlaster has been working pretty hard on getting some of the things that were kind of quirky before kind of straightened out. And so you'll want to take another look at that. And for $99, it's not a bad deal. Not a bad deal at all. One of the things that you also may want to look at in our store, and by the way, I'm an authorized reseller for vMix and for VidBlaster and for PTZOptics and for Magwell. And all of those are in our store, and we design and build custom PCs for streaming. So if you're struggling with your off-the-shelf Best Buy PC and it's not quite cutting it the way you'd hoped, give us a call. Tom at easternshorebroadcasting.com is the email, or go to the website and use the contact page. In fact, heck, our phone number is on the page, so you can call us. We'd be happy to talk with you about that. So we got all the business stuff out of the way. Now we can have fun. We have the first time I ran into Paul Richards, he called me out of the blue, and he said, "Hi, this is Paul Richards with PTZOptics." And then he proceeded to talk my ear off for about 45 minutes, and I knew at that point that he was one of those guys. He was one of those guys. You got to make sure you have him on your list. Actually, it's on both lists. The guys you got to look out for, because they're trouble. They're trouble with a capital T. And the guys that are great resources because they know so much and they're willing to go out and learn more and share that information. And that's the kind of guy that this Richards guy is. He is with PTZOptics, which is a manufacturer and distributor of high-quality pan, tilt, zoom cameras. They're up in Pennsylvania, and they distribute these cameras all over the world. They're great. I've got one in my studio here. I've sold tons of them to churches and other businesses around the U.S., and they are definitely a thumbs up for us. So Paul's going to let us in on some of the secrets that are going on with PTZOptics, and let me bring Paul in. Oops, that's the wrong shot. Doggone it. That's Paul in Las Vegas with some of the rock stars there. This is the shot that I wanted to get. And before I forget, we're going to turn Paul's audio on. Paul, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tom. Thanks so much for having me. I'm a big fan.
Well, you're very kind. And the other thing you got to remember about Paul, folks, is that he's in sales. So he's going to say anything to anybody. and and maybe a little of it's true. Maybe a little of it's true. I'm teasing, of course. So Paul, tell us how. Now we know you guys have been in the camera business with Huddle Cam and the conference room systems for a long time, and then the PTZOptics cams. But kind of when did streaming come on your radar? I mean, that's kind of a different thing from the conference room gig. When did you discover streaming from a viewer standpoint anyway?
Yeah, I mean, fairly late. I mean, from what I've heard from watching some of your shows, you've been doing it for a long time, and for me, it's really only been about the last year or two. And for when I very first figured out about line streaming and learned about it, I took it to my boss and I said, "Hey, this looks like a great application." And they were really apprehensive about it. They were thinking, video conferencing is a much bigger industry, which it is. The unified communication space is a much larger opportunity for our company, and that's where he wanted me to spend all my time. And eventually, what we found out, and I think you can, one of the things you said was it's the Henry Ford days of live streaming. Everything's coming together at once, and when something like that happens, there's a lot of opportunity. And I was able to finally get my bosses to kind of let me off the chains and say, "Go ahead, Paul, just go ahead and play with as much live streaming stuff as you want."
Well, and so when was that? Just curiosity. I mean, what kind of time frame are we talking about? Was that 2 years ago, 18 months ago, a year ago?
Yeah, I would say about 2 years ago was when I had started thinking about it and saying, "Wow, this is great. Look at all this stuff that's happening." But really, about a year ago, and was when my boss finally was saying, "All right, Paul, I think you're right." Which usually I have to, prod at him a little bit and say, "This is what I think. This is what I think." And they say, "No, go back to your regular job." And then finally, after a while, they say, "All right, go ahead." Because usually we're a small business, and I'm a huge small business fan because I've worked in larger businesses before where it takes a million years to get anything done and so much red tape. And we're a small business, so we can really turn on a dime and get things done. And we have a great group of people who just want to get things done. We don't want to sit around. And when I finally got the okay to go for live streaming, we just dove right in.
Oh, that's awesome. And not only did you, I guess you saw the value from a PTZOptics standpoint in terms of supplying cameras from streaming, but you took it the next level and you said, not only is this an industry we want to sell to, but it's an industry we want to participate in, and you set up your own studio.
We did, and it wasn't very difficult. And the interesting thing for me was that for the people who were buying conferencing systems from us, our core customers who were setting up USB-based video conferencing systems, they can basically use that exact same system, put vMix on it, and now their conference room is a live streaming system. And I'm trying to help small to medium-sized, maybe even large businesses understand that, but they're not getting it yet. And people like you get it, and I think a lot of your viewers understand it. But the world as a whole is, even though it's growing so fast, even though they have everything they need practically except a $60 license of vMix, they're not jumping on board. And I think trying to work it out and figure out when are the masses going to adopt this technology, because it will happen, but we're not there yet, or we're not even close.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because we had this as a brief discussion the other day. What I'm seeing a lot of is this emerging technology like blab.im, and what was the one that somebody asked me about yesterday? Something called YouNow. Have you ever heard of YouNow?
No.
Well, you go to YouNow. If you go to YouNow right now, there are probably 300 or 400 people that are live streaming right now. And some of them are doing it with their phone. Some of them are doing it with the camera built into their laptop. But they're streaming, and they're getting it. And I used to divide people in the live streaming industry up into various tiers. With tiers kind of being tier 1 being the beginner, and then tier 2 kind of being the skilled amateur, and then tier 3 is kind of the professional amateur or the low-end professional. Well, now we've got a tier 0.5, which is these kids, 15 to 25-year-old folks that are getting into streaming for free, for next to nothing. But they are beginning to learn how to broadcast. They're learning what it takes to interact with an audience and how to please an audience and how to get a message across to an audience. And these folks are going to grow up, and they're going to go to college, and they're going to graduate from college, and they're going to get into business, and they're going to have had a 10-year time period where they've experienced this. It's not going to be new technology to them. It's going to be the way it always was. And they are going to embrace this fully, and they're going to expect that any business or organization that they work with have a live streaming element to communicate their message. It's you sent some slides to me, and I want to let you react to what I just said, but I want to pull up the slide that I know you're going to refer to as the bell curve slide.
Yes.
As we
So
refer to that.
This bell curve slide is taught in business schools, and it's a well-known slide that can be applied to any market and industry. And I got a chance to ask a lot of people at B&H Photo, who I would say arguably receive the most live streaming requests of any business in the world, and they gave me some interesting information. I'd love to hear what the chat room has to say, your viewers have to say, what you have to say. I think this bell curve here is almost close to where it should be, that little arrow there, because I think there's just so much room for growth that it's almost still everyone that's doing this, all the people you mentioned, and YouNow and Blab, I would consider them innovators. It's not quite even the early adopters. I don't know. You tell me.
I think maybe so. I think maybe so. Let's see if we can't put you in the shot here, because this is your graphic. I think really what we've got not just one bell curve. I think we've got a series of bell curves. And some of those bell curves are probably in the different age demographics. So if you talk about people that are 50 and older, young folks like me, and like half those guys and gals in the chat room today, we're folks that are thinking about this from a business standpoint, or from the standpoint of wanting to communicate a fairly serious message to our audience. Whether it's about personal experiences we've had and we want to help other folks with those experiences, or something in business that we want to share. And then we've got the group that's maybe probably 30 to 50, and they're thinking about broadcasting sports because they've got kids that are playing sports, or they're somehow involved in that, or they've got other more active kinds of things. And then we've got that lower group that is growing up with this technology as if it had already been there. And I think they're going to go through this bell curve much more rapidly and become, what was it, at the early majority. They're going to become an early majority in a 2-year time, where a 50-year-old, it may take him 10 years to get to that point. Or take his peers 10 years to get enough people in that category. But the teenagers, man, they're already there in numbers.
Yeah, that's a really good point when you think about it with demographics. And I just love presenting that slide. I've shown it to so many people. I've shown it on my show a lot. And it just gets people thinking about, where are we today? Where are we going in the future? And one of the interesting responses I got at B&H Photo was they said, one of the older gentlemen who's been through this a lot, he said that every NAB is kind of like the central point of the live streaming broadcast market. And a lot of times people who are thinking about investing in live streaming technology, they wait to see what's going to come out at NAB. And even though they're waiting for NAB, they get there and they find out about all these new products that aren't even shipping yet. So NAB happens in Q2, Q3, maybe some of those newer technologies that are maybe breaking down some of the borders, and some of the barriers that they, to live streaming, such as NDI and some of the other things we talked about that we're really excited about, but we can't get our hands on them, like the bird dog piece that you talked about in your last show and some of these other things. So then Q3 comes, maybe some of the stuff shipping. Q4, definitely some of this NDI stuff, maybe even, I don't know if we would have an NDI camera by Q4. I wish, I hope. I won't say anything if we will or we won't, but let's say maybe we will.
Where is my Twitter? Hold on a second. Paul
everyone,
has said.
All I'm saying is that by Q4, that's when those products that were mentioned in Q2 are actually shipping, and then the whole cycle starts over again. But that was one way of thinking about how this bell curve in a year-by-year status happens as well.
Well, and you guys have moved quickly, I think. I mean, you start out with Gen 1 in your PTZs. It was just a couple of months ago that you announced Gen 2, and you're about ready to ship Gen 3. Is that right? The 3G SDI?
3G SDI is actually built into the Gen 2 models. I think it's okay for me to say that we are 100% working on an NDI camera. I do not have any... and I think it's also fair to say that we actually have engineers in China right now, as we speak. They're asleep right now because the other side of the world that are working on it right now. So, yes, I mean, sometimes it's a bad thing to say because it's like, yeah, don't buy anything because we're working on it. And who knows how long it could take. We could come back with a prototype that is just not even worthwhile selling. And that happens a lot. So, but the point I was trying to make is that you release all these things at NAB and they don't come out for 6 months, and that's to be expected. And we really want an NDI camera. I promise you that. It's on our docket list. We have people in China working on it. I have no idea how long it's going to take.
Well, you're going to be in that no man's land because you're going to have NAB last month where you didn't announce this product. And by the next time NAB comes around, you will already have been shipping this product.
That happens.
And you're off the cycle, which makes your job as business development director that much more important to get the message out. And see, that's where live streaming is absolutely critical to bring the message out to, number one, your tribe, the group of folks that have discovered PTZOptics for your Friday 2 p.m. Live stream, and that's coming up day after tomorrow. Tell me what the subject is for Friday's show.
So this Friday, we're talking about how to brand a live stream. So right. I will actually be wearing a, I guess since you asked.
I asked.
I will be in a kitchen wearing a cooking hat, and I will have a chef's hat, and it will be live stream cooking. And we're doing that just to show how easy it is, what it takes, the Photoshop skills, the Adobe After Effects skills, all of the skills that you need to completely create soup to nuts from scratch a live streaming channel. Because I feel like that's a big barrier for businesses, because businesses are thinking, okay, I could go to YouTube Live and do it for free, but I don't want to live stream something that's not fully branded and ready and look professional. So that's one of the big hurdles I'm trying to help just in general to show how we've been able to do it. I know you've probably spent hours and hours creating your branding as well.
Brand? I'm just an idiot. That's the brand. That's
That's a good brand to go for.
But folks, this is what this guy is doing. He has looked down the road and he said, what are the barriers for folks putting a PTZOptics cam in their business? How can I help them get rid of these barriers? I'm going to have to provide them with tools that, number one, don't already exist, but are going to be vital for them being successful in their business. And hopefully, I'm going to give away all this stuff for free. Hopefully, they're going to come back to the guy that taught them all this stuff and say, yeah, we want a PTZOptics camera. I love that concept. I mean, that's the concept that Streaming Idiots Eastern Shore Broadcasting works on, is that we're pumping out as much information. Some of it's bad, some of it's mistakes, but it's real. And the idea is, yeah, we're not just plastic folks that are going to sell you something in a box and hope it works for you. I mean, we're on your side. We're an advocate for what you're doing, for who you are and what you're doing. And I love that. I mean, you and I are kindred spirits, although I'm probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years older than you are, just a little bit. You don't look like you're more than, say 32. So that would put me at 42. Yeah.
Well, I won't check your math on that one.
Okay. So you've got the NDI camera in the early stages, and you might get a great breakthrough and be able to come to market quickly. It may take some more time. At this point, you just don't know enough to know. Is that a pretty safe statement?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I wanted to say with that, and I'm probably going to get, you said I'm a salesman, and that's very true. And the thing is that here's the engineers, here's the sales guys, and it's like this all day long, every day. And sometimes I just get tired of it. I'm like, I can't ask them for the new IP joystick, which is shipping very soon. It's all these little things. I'm like, can I get my customers it? Can I get my customers it? Paul, go back to your desk. It's not ready. It's not ready. So it's kind of like, I'm always here. They're always there. But the one thing I wanted to mention is that we have people in China right now working on this, because, the engineers are here, the factory's in China. And sometimes the long distance communications are very difficult. And we just had to send Matt Davis, our lead engineer, and Patrick Kirby, one of our employees who actually speaks Mandarin fluently, and flew him over there. And that's one of the number one things among a bunch of other things as well. But it's one of the number one things that they're working on.
That's great. That's great. And not only are you working on that, which is a huge project, but you guys did announce at NAB another camera, the
Yes.
Perfect Track. Tell me about that. And I'm gonna run this clip while you do that too.
Perfect. So what you're seeing here is a PTZOptics camera being controlled by an additional module that uses a Sony Visca protocol. And that's actually Patrick Wang there at the University of Florida at the Houghton Graduate School of Business Management. And he's actually the lead CIO with the engineering there. And what they've created is basically a box that can control any Sony Visca camera. And what it does is it takes a video feed from the PTZOptics cameras, which is really ideal for our cameras because we have 3 full HD simultaneous video feeds coming off the cameras. So while it will work with any Sony Visca camera, really a PTZOptics is going to be one of the only usable cameras for it because we're one of the only products that have 3 full HD outputs, and the computer needs one of those video outputs because they takes the video in, it processes it, and it basically does processing to follow a face. There's a training process, so you would train a person. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes, and you would train for that person's face. So let's say you have Bob is a teacher, and then you've got Sally, who's another teacher. Each of them can have their own profile, and you would just select the profile of the face that you'd like the camera to track. And as you can see, it just basically follows him around, and you can choose between various layouts. So if you wanted like a head to toe shot, you could choose that layout. Or in this video we're looking at here, he's doing like a head to kind of waist shot. And we're really excited about it. One of the nice things for everyone is that it will work with any Sony Visca camera. So if you're a church with 5 Sonys that you purchased already, you can actually just add the box and you don't need to purchase additional cameras. It actually isn't a camera. It's really a control box.
And so this actually would become the base for a PTZ camera. And you plug the camera into that and then out from that. Oh no, that's right. And then the camera would send a separate video feed back to your video processing unit, a vMix PC or something like that. Then that's really cool. So there are 2 ways that it's going to sell. Number one is you're going to sell the box, and then the box will work with any of your PTZs. So if you want a 12x SDI or a 20x USB 3, the box will be ubiquitous and will work with all of them. That's neat. And have you got a date? What did you tell me? The fall?
Yes. Yeah. Well,
Winter?
no, actually, sooner than that. So
Okay.
we're looking at the beginning of Q3, which is July 1st. So, yeah. So we're excited.
Month after next.
A month after next. I mean, it does 100% work today, but what we've done is we're taking the time to give it to some early adopters. I'd like to get it in your hands, Tom, and we're just every time we get it to somebody, they're like, "Well, can you add this? Can you add that?" And I'm really happy that we're taking this extra 3 months after NAB to add all the little tiny features so that when this ships, it's going to be a product that we can really stand behind.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to get a demo version. Because I've got a large public school system that I work with that I think will be interested, and then I know all my local churches will be interested in it because it's one less camera operator that they're going to need to be able to follow the pastor around or whatever the circumstance is. And you know, what was it? Somebody was saying, you know, a volunteer is worth about $5,000. And so, you know, if they can replace a volunteer, they paid for the camera. Or if they've already got a camera and they're getting the system, they've definitely paid.
Tommy mentioned that the camera was tracking even when the subject wasn't facing the camera, and that's really the what they're really working on. Because sometimes you can lose the face, and what'll happen is if it loses a track of the face, it'll go back to a standard preset position, let's say a podium or something, or a wide shot, until it finds the face again. So what we're doing now is we're falling back to motion tracking. So if it does lose the face, professor's looking at the back of a whiteboard or something, it loses the face, it falls back to motion tracking and actually just tracks the body of the person. So it should be fairly smooth, which Chris is asking about. I did send you a picture, Tom, of the interface, but if you don't have it queued up, don't worry about it. It's on ptzoptics.com/perfect-track. And there's a picture of the software, which gives you some options in there for how it'll work. And it will be
find that.
one box per camera. And, you know, I'm just going to let all the secrets out. Apparently, we can most likely do, as soon as NDI is on the cameras, we should be able to have a giant server and just do an unlimited amount of cameras. So this NDI technology we're really excited about. So as of today, and probably for the next year, I would imagine would be a single box per camera because of the processing power required. But eventually we want it to be just a giant server, receives all the video feeds over NDI, and then just sends the pan tilt zoom commands over the network as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So there's a shot of the camera on top of the box. So the footprint is about the same, not that much bigger, but definitely, you know, I can imagine it's the right tool for the job in those specific instances. So you've got perfect track that's motion, and then it's got NDI built in, and then, you know, it's got a little popcorn maker on the back too. This is gonna be great. As if you didn't have enough going on, you guys are working with Sandra.
Yes.
In Norway, to make your PTZOptic cameras move based on voice activation. Are you ready to tell more about that, or have I let enough?
Let's talk about it. So I'm assuming all your viewers have seen the vMix plugin that you've created. And what PTZOptics would like to do is partner with Tom on this project and take away the requirement of having vMix. So it's great. You've already built that, and that's awesome. But what we want to do is we want to have the same software that Sandra's created be able to issue commands directly to the camera. So therefore, anyone with a TriCaster, with Wirecast, with Vid Blaster, you know, the list goes on and on. It could even be for conferencing. Right? It could, if we remove the vMix element from it, not that I don't love the vMix product, I do, but if we remove it and make it directly to the cameras, now the applications are just so widespread. So as soon as that's ready, Sandra has a camera we ship to him in Norway, and as soon as it's ready, we would like to bring that to market throughout all of our different channels that we have.
And so what that's going to do is that's going to take advantage of the presets within the camera. So you can set up, let's say you set up 3 different shots for camera number 1. And each one of those shots would have an audio source, a microphone associated with it. So when that mic became active, it would move the camera to focus on whoever that mic. I mean, I can see, you know, in a city hall, you know, a county commission type meetings format where you've got, you know, 5 different people across the stage, each one with their own microphone. Now you can have one camera that tracks them all individually, and you don't have to have a camera operator. I love it. I love it. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. I wish I'd thought of it.
And that's the thing I love about it too, is that the perfect track is something that is really great, and the other products on the market are like $16,000 from Vadio and really expensive things, but now we go back to the audio controlled switcher. I think it's only going to be a few $100s. So now we've got something that's super affordable as well. That everybody's already got microphones if they're doing a live stream or a conference. So I'm really happy to see that this all coming together.
That's cool. That's cool. I love it. I love it. And actually, I guess it could work with more than one camera at a time. If it were, well, certainly if it were vMix, it could switch from camera to camera and then within a single camera from shot to shot. Unfortunately, Wirecast wouldn't have that, and TriCaster wouldn't have that. Oh, God.
vMix will always most likely be ahead of the game in that area. So that is an interesting thought, Tom, and I guess we'll have to spend some time after the show thinking about it, whether or not Sandra could maybe you want to buy 2 licenses, one for each camera, or potentially does one license able to control multiple cameras.
And I bet that there would be some sort of interface with the API in Wirecast and VidBlaster. I don't know that much about TriCaster, where a little interface could be developed where you could control the whole thing from within the software, or let the audio control switcher software control the switching from camera A to camera B, as well as from preset to preset shots on the camera. That's so exciting, and the flexibility of it all, because all this stuff I love it. It's like Legos, and you can take Legos and you can build you're only limited by your imagination, and the more different shapes of Legos and different functions our Legos become, the more people are calling me every week with the question, can I do this? Well, yeah, actually you can. If you take this part and put it together with that part and put this software in it, and sure, why not? NDI has opened, gosh, I don't know how many doors. I worked with a guy last week who's in his motorhome right now driving from Arkansas to Oregon, and he does an online learning seminar, and he's going to be broadcasting it live from Oregon as well as having a local contingent, but he's going to use NDI to take the PowerPoint feed from the presenter at the front of the room and send it back to him so that he can live stream it to the folks watching at home. And then there'll be a camera at the front of the room that'll have a close-up on something that he's doing. So he's going to take the image from that camera, stream it live, but he's also going to send that camera back up to the presenter's laptop so it can be displayed on the projector so that everybody that's physically present can see it. So it's NDI is like the proverbial magical Swiss Army knife. I know you're not you're not a new tech guy, but you play one on TV. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the general pitch from the salespeople at New Tech. They said, all the times we had to say no, you can't do this. Now we can just say yes, and that was. It's pretty much true for most applications. It
is. And Martin Kay, who is watching the show right now, just sent me a link yesterday, I think it was, to an NDI application that he's developing that will allow. I don't want to speak out of turn, but let me just put it this way: NDI is going to open the box so that lots of people can get in and use the NDI technology and build the Legos around them to do all sorts of things. And I'm hoping I can have Martin on in the future to talk about some of these projects that he's working on, because it's when we talk about a game changer, this is creating a whole new sport. And it's a whole new ball game. It's like combining baseball, basketball, football, hockey, and soccer all together in one giant game, and it works. It's a paradigm shift. That's what I wanted. It's a paradigm shift. Okay, what else is on your list? What did I leave out that we were going to talk about?
You know what? I think we covered everything.
Okay.
I'd love to be on again, so we don't need to really squeeze the juice like you mentioned. I don't think we have to go that far.
Well, we do have a limit in how many times we can invite somebody on. I think it's, like once every 3 years if they live north of the Mason-Dixon line. No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing. Southerners are very conscious of this kind of stuff. Everybody else in the rest of the world doesn't pay any attention. No. No, we'd love to have you back on. In fact, maybe timing it with some events that are going on with you guys as part of a rollout of whatever it might be. I think that would be really cool. For example, when you send me, of course I'm going to be the first one you're going to send one to, but when you send me the perfect track, would be a great time to come back on and we can talk about that.
Great.
And when you send me the very first NDI camera that you ever make, and I'm the first one to get that, he hasn't agreed to any of this, folks. He's just laughing. So we'll have to see. Obviously, they're bigger fish than little me. But yeah, that's the whole idea of rolling out something like that. That's great. That's great.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to, especially the perfect track. That is ready. I've just been holding off because they're making so many changes so quickly. I wouldn't want to send you something that's going to be completely different the next time you see it, but it's pretty close. So it's coming your way soon.
But before we close out, and we're a tad bit over time, but before we close out, talk a little bit about your website and about the cameras that you guys kind of have as your bread and butters.
Sure. So the website's PTZOptics.com, and we have all of the products there. So 12x SDI to 20x USB, $15.99 to $17.99. They all have IP streaming. They all have HDMI, and then your choice of either USB 3.0 or HD SDI, which is a very easy choice for most of our customers. Whether you need HD SDI or USB 3.0. So yeah, I mean, it's been really fun. We've got a great team here, and that's one of the things that I know, Tom, you got to meet most of our team at NAB, but our engineers are great. Our support guys, Andy Chatfield, they'll support anybody, and sometimes I have to tell Andy, they're not even using our cameras, and they're not even using our software. You have to stop supporting these people, but he's so super nice. And one of the things about PTZ Optics that separates us, I think, from Panasonic and Sony and these things is you call us, you get a person on the phone, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we know what we're talking about. I mean, I'm a sales guy, so you're right. I sometimes push the edges a little bit. Hopefully it's been entertaining for everybody, but our engineers, they won't say something that they're not 100% sure about. Our support guys won't tell you that they can't fix it if they can't fix it. And I think we have a really great team here that's really dedicated.
Great. Awesome. And that's ptzoptics.com on your local internet provider. All right, well, folks, we're going to close out the show at this point, and a big, huge thank you to Paul for coming on. And
thanks for having me, Tom.
And filling up our brains with, actually, he's filling up our wish list for Christmas of all the things that we say, oh, you know what? If I get some found money, I'm going to go out and get me one of those PTZ optic cameras, and I'm going to tell my wife that I'm going to take it down and let the church use it on Sunday, but I get to use it the rest of the week. That's how these deals get negotiated right there. So thank you, Paul. For those of you that are watching us live, we would invite you to hang after, because who is going to do it today? I think Kevin is the one that's going to be bringing refreshments to the post-show party, and Paul's going to hang around for that. So if you've got some questions that you want to pepper him with, or if you asked a question in the chat and somehow it got slipped by, pepper him with it again. And if you're watching us on YouTube, golly, we should have said this earlier, but we hope you'll subscribe. Obviously, if you've gotten to this point in the video, you've been interested by what we've had to say. So we hope that you will take a moment and subscribe, and that way you'll get a notice of all future shows. I'm Tom Sinclair. This has been Streaming Idiots. We are so glad that you popped in today for our show, and come back and see us again sometime. We're good. We're fun. Take care.